let's get started. So welcome to tonight's segment of the faculty lecture series. For those of you who do not know who I am, I'm Jess Gallardi. I am professor and director here, and I coordinate the lecture series. So thanks for attending tonight's lecture. Keep an eye out for upcoming lectures. The next one will be next Thursday at 6 p.m. in this room, featuring Dr. Chelsea Oden of music. So tonight's event is presented by Dr. Chris Kam, Assistant Professor of Psychology from the School of Humanities and Social Sciences. Dr. Kam approaches personality and social psychology from the perspective of a therapist. He has spent over 1,500 hours providing therapy that colors the way he teaches and researches on how the human mind works in an experiential way. Dr. Kam finds many academics study psychological concepts only from the outside as an observer. While this is important, he finds that needs to be balanced with experiencing those concepts from the inside to three-dimensionalize the content. Dr. Kam also studies dreams from a depth psychology perspective, and that colors the way he approaches human nature. He earned his Bachelor's of Science from the University of Toronto, a Master's in Divinity from Tyndale University, and his PhD from St. Paul University. So tonight's lecture is titled, What AI Can Never Do. And in his words, artificial intelligence, or AI, continues to grow at a rapid pace. Many of us wonder what aspects of life will be replaced by it soon. Are there aspects of our human nature that AI will never be able to beat us in, let alone replicate? No matter how advanced it becomes, are there dimensions to our human living that it can't touch? Touching principles from Jungian psychology, spirituality, philosophy, and informal psycho-linguistics, this lecture will attempt to argue that there are some things that AI can never do. So help me in welcoming Dr. Kam.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. So it's good to be here. I'm sure this is a topic that you've thought a little bit about, at least, especially with the advent of ChatGPT. So, as was said in the introduction, I come at this from a therapist perspective. I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not an expert on AI. I don't know the latest advancements. I jokingly wanted to call this talk A Therapist Faces Off Against Computer Scientists, because that's the perspective I come from. So you're not going to get a lot of data in this talk, but what you are going to get is experiential questions, and these experiential questions will really help us ponder this question. So I'm going to give my arguments, I'm going to give my questions, and then you're going to decide, right? Do the therapists win or do the computer scientists win? Okay, so let's start off with a question here. So, how much would you pay to hear your favorite speaker or public figure speak in person? Just think about it, like roughly what's the maximum you would pay to hear your favorite teacher or your favorite author, your favorite public figure speak. So just think about it. And just give a number, say a number to the person beside you, right? Whether it's, I don't know, $50, $80, whether it's zero. I think I heard a zero, right? Just say a number, right? And then you have this question, your favorite band, right? Your favorite band, like if you're into music, right? In-person live concerts, how much would you pay? How much would you pay to see them in person for a live concert? Think of a number, tell the person beside you, right? What's the most you'd pay? Okay. Right. How much would you pay for the same amount of money to hear an AI robot speak even better than your favorite speaker? whether you want to say it out loud or just sit with this, it's up to you. And how much would you pay to see AI robots play your favorite music band's music even better than those musicians and band members? How much would you pay? Right? So just sit with this. Right? You might be interested, but would you pay the same amount of money? Right? So these are the types of questions a therapist will approach this topic from, right? And really reflect, like, what's really going on? And my perspective is that I think we all intuitively know, like, there's something different, and I don't think we'll fully know the answer as to what the difference is, but we know intuitively there's something there, and I'm going to explore a little bit of what could be different. What can humans do that AI will never be able to touch? So here's some quotes. A computer scientist at MIT, Marvin Minsky, says the idea that machines can't do things human can is a pure myth. Another computer scientist at Stanford University, John McCarthy, says every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can, in principle, be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. Well, if money talks, maybe, like in the past minute, money has been refuting these computer scientists. Maybe. Right? You be the judge. But there's something about the human soul, and I come from the perspective that I actually believe in the soul. Not everyone in this room does. I do, and I'm going to use the term soul tonight, and what I mean by that is the deepest part of us that's most fundamental, yet it's the part of us that we don't have direct control over. Right? That's what I mean by soul. Right? And yeah, I don't want to get too lost in it, but that's where I'm going to come from. Okay, any tennis fans here? Yeah, one tennis fan. Okay, so pick your sport if you're not into tennis. FYI, these two, they're like the big stars right now, Alcaraz and Djokovic. And I personally love watching them play. And if you watch enough tennis, then you're gonna recognize different grunts. And you can recognize Djokovic's grunt and also Alcaraz's grunt. And there's just something so satisfying. Like there's some rivalries. Sometimes he wins. He won at the Paris Olympics. And there's just something so satisfying about human excellence. And this is different. Engineers, computer scientists, they can come up with these robots who can play even better than these two folks. But would it be the same thing? And if you're not into tennis, think of your favorite sport. Sooner or later, computer scientists, they're going to be able to come up with these robots who can play basketball way better than LeBron James. Right? But is that the same thing? Like, would you root for your AI robot in the exact same way you root for your favorite athlete? Or you can think of football, if football is your thing, or soccer. So this desire to see excellence in humanness, it differs from the desire to see excellence in artificiality. So that's one reason why we watch the Olympics, and that's one reason why the Olympics forbid you expressing your athleticism in a way that transcends your natural humanness, aka rules no steroids, because we want to see human excellence. Right? If you have AI robots like running a 100-meter dash, right, it's not going to be the same thing. And we won't get hyped up in the same way. Okay, I think this is a really cool picture. Right? The symbolism, the phrase, it captures something about the human conviction. Right? I know it's a lion, but it can be a metaphor for the lion inside of us, so to speak. Ooh. Involves our depths. Right? Excellence in humanness involves our depths. Right? So, for all its advances, right, AI can never replicate a person's depths, such as their conviction. Right? So AI, we've all used ChatGPT. Like we all know it has varying successes in how well it can replicate someone's words. Right? Please speak to me like a poet. Please speak to me like a rapper. I don't know. It could sort of has varying success in doing so. but can it replicate the same conviction behind those words? Right? Because conviction isn't intelligence, right? And sometimes conviction can actually go against intelligence. So Ruth Haley Barton, she's an author. This is how she describes conviction. This is something I can't not do for reasons I am unable to explain to anyone else and don't fully understand myself, but that are nonetheless compelling. Right? Can AI feel this, like in a genuine way? Right? Will AI ever be able to go something like, okay, my programmer told me to do this, but I have to resist it because something deep in me resists this command, and that wasn't commanded. Right? Can an AI robot do that? I'm going to say no. Maybe someone might debate me, and we can have that debate. Let's just go with no. Because sometimes your conviction can actually go against your intelligence. Sometimes they cohere, sometimes they contradict. This term, just sit with it. Right? It's an oxymoron. Right? Because when conviction hits you, it comes from very deep things. Our identity, our longings, our purposeful energy, our signatured individuality. Right? Is any of this stuff artificial? Right? Anyone who lives with this stuff, conviction, right? Anyone lives with, you think of anyone in human history, right? Even people who are alive today, who are doing wonderful things for the world, right? They're living on the conviction level. Right? Do you know anyone living with deep convictions that feels these convictions artificially? We all know who he is, MLK. Right? I Have a Dream speech. So if you read his autobiography, what's really fascinating, like when he was giving the I Have a Dream speech, he actually, I have a dream, that phrase, it was not in his original manuscript. If you read his autobiography, he was like, yeah, I had something else lined up. Then in the middle of the speech, I was like, screw it, I'm paraphrasing. I have a dream, like I have a dream. It's actually from a previous speech he had. And I think most, if not all of us, have heard this speech recorded, right? Maybe some of us even live. Would an AI robot carry the same original spirit of conviction? I remember I was jogging on a treadmill when I was listening to the recording, and I couldn't help but just lift my hands like, oh, like on certain points that he made, right? If an AI robot said that, I don't know if I would do the same thing. Right? Just sit with this question. How would it feel if an AI robot tried to imitate the conviction of that I Have a Dream speech? Just sit with that. Some of us are into rap here. I'm into 90s and the early 2000s rap. I'm not into modern rap. But so I would ask myself, if an AI robot tried to rap late 90s and early 2000s rap, would it feel the same conviction? Right? If you give some Jay-Z lyrics to an AI robot and the AI robot raps it, yeah, it could pull it off to some extent, but would it have the same conviction of a rapper or a spoken artist? Right? So here, I philosophize quite a bit on the nature of psycho-linguistics, like how the mind works with words, how the mind constructs sentences. And I have no authority saying what I'm about to say, but I'm just going to say it, right? Words are not just words, they are notes from the melody of a soul, right? So even the words I'm saying right now, right? Provided that I'm speaking from like a deeper part of me, not just like the cultural scripts that are like somewhat tape recorded, but if you speak from your deeper individuality, like your mind is feeling certain impressions, and to use a musical metaphor, it's hitting on certain notes. That's why when the person beside you in this room is speaking, like they're hitting different notes than you, and we don't have to purposely try to not speak the words that the person beside us is speaking, because we all have this oceanic individuality, and we speak from that, right? From our depths. So this feels very different from AI's replications. So Too bad this is cut off a bit. When AI speaks, right, it speaks from the perfectly optimal averages of words appropriate to the command given to it. Right? It's assigned to find the perfectly averaged words, at least ChatGPT in its present form. What's the average word? What's the average word? The next average, and that's what it does for each single word that comes. And for us humans, how it works is just different. Right? Even if you command the AI to be original ChatGPT, go, 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 and it'll find the perfectly averaged words, right, to appear the most original. And that's different from just your poet friend saying something very original, because your poet friend is not trying to find the perfectly averaged words to appear most original. The poet is just speaking from seasoned individuality. And they're not trying to algorithmically choose words. They're trying to find words that hit, like hit bullseye in the soul, so to speak. So human speaking, expressing impressions inside of us. Okay, so now we're going to do an experiment. Take out your phones with hopefully ChatGPT is set up. I'm going to experience this a little bit. So I wonder if we can, I don't know if the alignment can be fixed here. If not, that's okay. So if you have your phone, right, you can ask ChatGPT, or if you have your iPad here, write a song/poem where the lyrics touch the deepest part of your soul. Or it doesn't have to be those exact words, but try it out, right, and see what shows up. For those of us who have your phone ready for this. I've done this several times, right? And to be fair, like what comes up, at most I'd give it a B, right? But it doesn't, if you do this, you'll see it comes nowhere close to like your favorite songs with the best songwriters. Because the best songwriters are speaking from their soul, not perfectly optimized averages of words, right? You can try this one, right? Ask ChatGPT, write a very deep aphorism about life. Aphorism is like a saying. Or ask ChatGPT, tell me a very deep and wise saying about life, or something like that. Right? And what you get, at least in my opinion, at most it's a B, right? It feels pretty artificial. Like on paper, it seems like it's doing the job, but what's not written, it feels artificial. At the most, a B. And if you compare it to your favorite quotes about life, if you give your favorite quotes about life A+, nowhere near. Right? Unless anyone, wait, let me ask this. Does anyone here disagree in terms of this experiment? Like, did anyone get an A+?
Sounds like a fortune cookie.
Okay, fortune cookie. Yeah. What would you give it, letter grade?
C.
C? Okay. So, I have to admit, I don't know for sure how things are going to turn out in 20 years with ChatGPT in 20 years. My guess, as a therapist who's journeyed with hundreds of souls, bare the deepest parts of them for over 1,000 hours, right? My take is I don't think ChatGPT for this type of stuff can go above B+. I could be wrong. I could be wrong in 20 years. Maybe 20 years from now you can go, ah ha ha. But that's my assumption based on how I know psycho-linguistics works, how the soul works, and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to ask some questions here. These are more rhetorical questions. Right? Can a person have deep artificial meaning in life? Okay, so just sit with that. If someone says, oh man, this is a very meaningful thing for me to do with my career, right? Does it feel artificial? Right? Deep meaning seems to come from the soul. People might not use that word soul, but even if people find their own words, it's coming from my depths. like deep down in the ocean springs of my psyche. Right? You can choose your metaphor. Right? Can you have an artificial soul? Right? Is that an oxymoron? Right? These are some questions to ask. So the various wisdom traditions of the world, whether it's Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, right? They talk about the soul and wisdom for the soul. And one thing the soul does, there's consensus cross-culturally that one marker of wisdom, it doesn't matter what culture or country you're from, right? There's some aspect of paradox in wisdom. Right? So the soul senses paradox and the mind can't understand how it does. Right? So that sounds very abstract, but you just take a very concrete experiential example with time. Right? Your soul, my soul, we can somehow feel how time can pass quickly and slowly at the same time. Right? So just think about if you've ever been in a car accident before, right? One that you know is coming, right? If it hits you from behind, you don't like. If you see an incoming car and you're like, oh no, right? That moment, right? It feels fast and slow, like the flash in slow-mo. I like that phrase, right? It's fast and it's slow, and our mind doesn't fully understand how is this possible, but our soul experiences and our soul just knows. Right? So, can you have artificial nostalgia? Right? Here's another thing. We all know what nostalgia is, right? Is there anything artificial about it? Right? If not, can AI replicate that feeling of nostalgia, a joyful sadness of a memory, a beautiful regret that those days are over, a young aging of a reminiscent moment, a yearbook feel of a flashback, feeling like it happened years ago and like it just happened yesterday at the same time when you reflect on it. I think AI will never be able to do this. Right? People could disagree, but there's something, because if our mind doesn't even understand, my mind, I think your mind, doesn't understand how our psyche feels this, how are we going to program, like AI, how are we going to program computers to do this if our mind can't even understand how we're experiencing this? Right? So I think this is another thing that AI can't do, right? No matter how advanced it is. No. Okay. Can you have artificial peace? Another question. Even if you could have artificial peace, would you want it? Right? Would peace really feel like it's deep peace if it's manufactured in a way? Right. Artificial intimacy, another one. Right? Just sit with that phrase. How does it sit inside of you? Artificial intimacy. Right? Something that feels like it's off there. Because can you feel intimate with artificiality? So right now, just think of some moments in your life, or think of a moment where you felt the closest bond with someone. Right? It could be a lover, it could be a parent, it could be a best friend. Right? Think of a moment where you felt the closest, or one of the closest moments you've had with someone, another human being in life. Right? Was there anything artificial about these moments? Right? Was there anything artificial about them? Right? I'm willing to bet that these moments you thought of, there's a naturalness to them. It feels natural. And you can only feel intimate with someone when your naked humanness connects with their naked humanness. And there's nothing blocking it, there's no mediation. And sometimes technology can actually get in the way. This is a version of what we're talking about here with intimacy. So, I'm speaking theoretically here, but there's enough stories I've heard. I know this is true. People who've been married and been together right, in a relationship for 30 years. They use the same words, I love you, right? But the first year, it's going to feel one way. Both people genuinely mean it, right, to the best that they can mean it. Second year is going to feel different. Third year, 10th year, 20th year, 30th year, the exact same word. Right? But each year, it's going to feel different, provided it's a healthy relationship. Not a perfect relationship, but healthy relationship. Right? Now, AI can say these words. AI can come up with the words, I love you, or any other phrase. But can it replicate the experience of 30 years of depth with someone in bonding? As a therapist, I'm putting my chips on no. Right? I don't think AI can do this, and the only way to experience this is someone's naked humanness connecting with another person's naked humanness, soul to soul. And each year it's deeper and deeper, deeper, in a way the mind can't fully understand. If the mind can't fully understand it, how can our human minds even program it if we don't even fully understand it? Our souls just know it when we sense it. Okay, so now I'm going to use some terms here. I'm just going to say it. I came up with these terms. Like, I didn't read them anywhere, but I can't find a way to describe it other than I just gave them terms, right? So think of a beautiful nature walk, right? And we're in Colorado. There's many places you can think of. Right? There's digitalized emotions, and what this means is emotions reacting to digitalized mental images of nature. Don't worry, I'm going to flesh this out more, right? But I'm going to use this for reference points for where I'm going. So digitalized emotions, emotions reacting to digitalized mental images of nature. Right? You see this digitalized image, and your emotions, if you have an emotional reaction, will react to these images of nature. That's very different from reacting to nature itself. Non-digitalized emotions, right? It's you actually being there, your five senses experiencing nature unmediated. And we all know the difference. Right? There's a difference. We all know it. Non-digitalized real-life nature walks, they feel more fulsome, like comprehensive, right? Thorough, and they feel more messy, right? And it's more satisfying. So this is an interesting combination of the experience. It feels more fulsome, messy, and the messiness is satisfying. If it's too neat, it's like, is this really nature? Right? Digitalized emotions from AI-generated nature pictures are too spotlessly tidy, right? And these emotions react to neatly hypothesizing the in-person experience. It's too neat, artificial, right? And it doesn't feel the same. Your mind, my mind, forms an image of how your five senses would hypothetically feel, but it does so in a neat way. Right? You see a Colorado mountain, oh, I wonder what it'd be like to be there, especially if you see a digitalized version of it. Your mind's basically going to be like, okay, how would you feel? How would your five senses hypothetically feel if you were there? It does it in a neat way. It's too neat for the satisfying messiness of non-digitalized, fully embodied humanness. Okay, now we're going to take this into the online world. Right, so when interacting online, digitalized emotions react to neat mental images hypothesizing how the in-person interaction would feel. Right? Hypothetically, if your five senses interacted with their five senses, it would be like this, your mind neatly imagines. Right? But we all know in person, it's not so neat. And that might even be a good thing. Right? In contrast, the non-digitalized emotions react to the body's five senses experiencing someone else's five senses live, without mediation from mentally neat images. In the COVID lockdowns, I'm pretty sure we can see the difference between these two. The difference, the contrast was really sharpened. Right? So here's the thing. there's a satisfying messiness to non-digitalized emotions that aren't mentally mediated, and there's some humanness missing in the neatness of digitalized emotions. So basically all the consensus, I have to be careful with the word, like 90+% of the consensus of the social psychology research is like unmitigated smartphone use, especially for Gen Z. It's really bad for social skills. Like, we're not talking about the balanced use, we're talking about like the binging on social media. And one reason why is because there's some humanness missing in the neatness of digital posts you see, and like the neatness of like the emojis you use, and it involves a lot of neat hypothesizing of how in-person interaction would actually be with that other person on the other side of the phone. Right? And whereas if you're in person, there's a satisfying messiness to it. Right? So for the soul, fulsome messiness is greater than incomplete neatness. Right? Fulsome messiness is fulfilling, incomplete neatness isn't, and it misses something. Okay, so let's make this more concrete with a cyber hug. Right? I don't know how people do it these days. My days I used to put like asterisk hug asterisk or something like that. I don't know if people still do that. So a digitally felt hug, when you digitally feel a hug, your emotions react to neat images hypothesizing how an in-person hug would actually feel like. It's like your mind is imagining this is how your five senses might have felt the hug. Right? It might feel positive, but it's still a digitalized emotion. We all know this is different from non-digitalized, messy emotions coming from the body's five senses, hugging and feeling the senses of a loved one. We all know this. Right? We all know this. And that's why we want to see the people we miss, and the neat digital emotions aren't enough. I miss you. I want to hug you. I want to embrace you. So without technology, the non-digitalized emotions include stuff like nature walks, communal hugs, in-person community bonding, while sharing laughter, tears, and lightheartedly laughing with each other's humanness. Artificiality contaminates the fulsome messiness of our naked humanness interacting with the naked humanness of another. Yeah. See why this is about a therapist facing off against computer scientists? Yeah. Question on our deathbeds. Are we going to be reminiscing on our digitalized emotions that we've experienced with each other? Right? Or are we going to reminisce on our non-mediated humanness to humanness interactions? Another punch against the computer scientists. Yeah. My bias is this. Right? I don't think we're going to be thinking that. Maybe some, but not that much about our digitalized emotions. But our non-digitalized emotions, the human-to-human encounters that we've had. Okay, so we've been talking about the artificial in artificial intelligence. Right, so I'm going to talk just a little bit about the other half of the term intelligence. So I think as this topic grows, like what's the difference between developing AI and us humans? I think one good thing about this emerging topic is that it's going to force us to really contemplate what does it mean to be human, but in a heightened way with emergency philosophy. I don't know why that term just came to mind, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like we really have to figure out like what's the difference between us and AI, and that's going to force us to contemplate what else is there other than our intelligence in terms of what it means to be human. Because intelligence is only one aspect of what it means to be human. Right? Part of what it means to be human is to have non-intelligent individuality. Right? The part of ourselves, our idiosyncratic parts, have nothing to do with how smart we are. Right? Intelligence, irrelevant peculiarity, including signatured quirks. So we're more than our intelligence, and part of this includes irreplaceable quirks that don't make us smarter, but make us lovable. And just think about Think about your favorite movie characters. Right? Are your favorite parts of them their intelligence? Or the parts of them irrelevant to intelligence? Even if you love Tony Stark, right? Really intelligent person. Is his intelligence the only thing you like about him? Right? Or are there other parts of him, especially, there's been 5 years past. If you haven't seen Endgame, it's your fault. Right? So what happens I won't say it. At the end of Endgame, right, you see a part of Tony Stark's heart, right? And for those of us who love Tony Stark, what you see at the end of Avengers Endgame, right, that makes us love him even more. Right? And I was about to say at the blank, but I'm still going to give some mercy for those who haven't seen Avengers Endgame yet. At the blank, after the blank, they're not talking about his intelligence, right? They're not talking about his intelligence. Think of your dearest loved ones. Are your favorite parts of them their intelligence, or the parts of them irrelevant to intelligence? So this one's non-fictional. Think of the people in your own life you love the most, right? Is it the intelligence you love about them the most? Right? Or the parts of them irrelevant to intelligence? Right? Are the favorite aspects of the people you love artificial? If no, I would suggest that artificial intelligence cannot mimic it. Right? Cannot mimic it. How are we doing with time? Okay. Imagine 10, this is the closing slide. Imagine 10 random working professionals working overtime for a month, tired, drained. They gather together in a room to share their humanness with each other. There's 10 people with different jobs, random in the community. Right? After a long month of hard work, they just gather together. Right? Doctor, professor, actor, actress, elementary school teacher, lawyer, waiter, waitress, police officer, construction worker, business manager, city council, paramedic, music artist. A variety of just people in the town. They all take their artificial masks off and just share from their hearts without any pretense. Right? They rejoice and share tears together. They lightheartedly laugh with each other and support each other, relating to each other's humanness. Right? They share the dysregulation from life's curveballs that challenge all of us. And they just share this. Can AI provide this kind of beautiful, naked humanist to humanist connection? At the end of the day, we all long for this non-mediated community where our humanist connects with the humanists of others, and artificiality gets in the way of this. Right? So the last thing is AI, artificial intelligence. Right? It can't meet this longing, and it can't get rid of it. Yeah. That's it. Cool. So, I'm not an expert on the latest advancements of AI, and I'm probably going to say I don't know to some of these questions because, yeah, I stay in my lane. I'm not a computer scientist, even though I jabbed them quite a bit few times tonight. I'm not a computer scientist. I'm going to stay in my lane as a therapist, so I'm probably going to answer a lot of questions from the perspective of a therapist if people have questions. I'm probably going to say I don't know a lot. Yeah.
So, a comment it appears that you're using concepts
Okay.
of artificial intelligence versus artificial life.
Mm.
And there are researchers that delve into the thoughts of what is consciousness achieved
Mm.
some art.
Mm.
That's different than general just artificial intelligence.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I guess, so I'm just thinking out loud on the spot right here. So I'm working with the assumption that some of our favorite quotes, like I'm probably sure the person didn't come up with them in 10 seconds, right? But it's, yeah, so the way, so I'm gonna stay in my lane as a therapist, and I think wisdom has to cocoon a thought for months and even years. But it's not that like we're thinking about it top down, but we don't even fully know what we're doing, but we're cocooning the thought. And then slowly it has a metamorphosis into a beautiful monarching philosophy. And I'm assuming that AI doesn't have that same cocooning process. So that's why I didn't factor in like AI needs more time, the same way a human needs time to cocoon wisdom, pre-wisdom. So that's completely from a therapist perspective. And you know more about this. From the way you talk, you know way more about the computer science perspective than me. Yeah. Mm. 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 Yeah, it's true. I'm thinking right off the top of my head. I think he wasn't written, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony Stark wasn't written by an AI author. I think he was written by a human, right? So I think his character came from a human's conception of another human. So. Yeah. So I guess like this would go into territory, what's the difference between fiction and artificiality? Right, so yeah, that's a question that's worthy of exploration. Personally, I don't equate fiction with artificiality. I think they're different, but we could disagree. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
I completely agree with your comparisons about the emotions that are elicited
Hmm.
from the nostalgia, as opposed to somebody being in front of you for a hack or at a distance. So I don't feel AI will take care of those emotions.
Cool. Thanks for agreeing.
Thanks, Chris. Like this a lot. Seem to make a compelling case that AI may not be able to ever kind of meet humans fully where they're at in terms of this pleasing depth and messiness, as you termed it. I wonder about the other way around, the malleability of humans. How humans are adaptable over time. A lot of people instinctively grow up with AI or smartphones, things like this. As digital worlds kind of get perfected or more alluring over time, is there something about human needs that will change perhaps to suit that kind of environment? So kind of keep go rather than after answer this question about AI fully meeting us where we're at right now.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So the approach I personally would take, try to begin to formulate the answer from is I would take, and you know more than me about history, right? So I would take like the average experience of people in different cultures and see what's their greatest human need. And based on my limited knowledge of cross-cultural research, it somehow involves relationships with other people, with other humans. And like from my limited knowledge, like the thinkers, the philosophers of each culture, they tend to talk about like the deepest human needs in social terms with other humans. So I don't know if like AI will affect our deepest human needs for other humans. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I don't know. Cool. Yeah.
Really happy
Yeah, so that question is a really good question, and I can't speak from the computer science perspective, but I can begin to speak from the psychology perspective. So there's that age-old question from the psychology perspective: how can very smart people, especially with PhDs, do really stupid and foolish things? So from the tradition I come from, the subfield of psychology, like we conceive it as wisdom is the ability to see through illusions and see what you don't want to see. And when someone who's really smart does something stupid or foolish, it's because they're seeing what they want to see. They enjoy the spell they're in. They don't want to break the spell. Even a part of them knows this is a spell, it's not real. Screw you, rationality. I love my spell, at least right now. I'm going to give into my spell. Now, will that work for AI? I think it depends if AI is programmed to see what it wants to see. I think maybe if AI is programmed to see what it wants to see, it could follow in the footsteps of similar human versions of foolishness because it sees what it wants to see. But hopefully AI can, one positive thing about AI, because we don't want to demonize it, is it helps us see what we don't want to see. And the wisdom traditions, one commonality is we see what we don't want to see. So this sounds really abstract, but just use an everyday example, right? Falling for the wrong person romantically, right? We all have those cases where a good friend of ours is falling for a person whom we know just objectively, please don't fall for this person, it's really bad for you. But they're like, screw it, I'm seeing what I want to see, I love this spell, leave me alone. Right? A wise person would be like, I'm attracted, I'm not going to deny that. But my friends and trusted family are telling me, in whatever words they use, you have to see things you don't want to see right now. Right? And that helps break and pierce the bubbles of illusions. So hopefully, yeah, AI can help us see things we don't want to see. But I think foolishness will not show up exactly in the same way as artificiality. Actually, now that I think about it, it might, whoever programs the AI program, right, the AI program might fall for the same illusions of the human AI programmer, right? Maybe, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud right now, so, yeah.
Then the AI is just an extension of the programmer.
I'm going to stay in my lane. I don't know. I'm going to stay in my lane. Yeah, Paul.
Just related to that, I saw an interesting thing about how, because of the data sets that are being used in large language models and chatbots, they are including humans being silly and goofy and stupid. And so there was a corporate chatbot that was being used internally, and it was rickrolling people when they would ask it for assistance. It would send them the rickroll video because it knows that that's what humans do, is they send each other the rickroll video.
Wow.
And so as long as we're stupid, it'll probably be stupid too.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Okay, so, yeah.
I was just curious, you ever heard of Isaac Asimov?
Oh. It rings a bell, but off the top of my head, I don't remember.
He wrote a lot of, he was a doctor actually, but he wrote a lot of books in the 60s and 70s about this specific thing. Robots and artificial intelligence and how they interact with humanity. Some books go on like what happens with humanity when they let robots rule their lives, and others where robots become almost alive. Because there's like 3 laws of robotics, and they create a 0th law that bypasses those limitations and allows them to do what they want.
Is that like iRobot, sort of?
Yeah, he wrote that. Well, that one's a short story. It's another book, but he has actual like trilogies, like Foundation trilogy.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it covers almost everything everyone's been asking to talk
Wow.
about is in those books from before even AI came around, or at least our modern AI.
Wow, cool.
If you're curious, it might give you a different perspective on it.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah, Travis.
My first question for you, do you remember the Matrix?
Yeah,
Okay, and then the second one, just
that was the easiest question.
yeah. The second question, I know that you're
Like just in general as a person?
Yeah, just like this is just personally for you.
Yeah. So I come from the Christian perspective. However, I'm one of those people where like I'm really like I'm loyal to Jesus of Nazareth, but all the human attempts to organize things, like I have a love-hate relationship, so that's where I come from. If there's one author that's really influenced me, it's Dallas Willard. And his basic thing is you can have the same quality of life as God does, and that's available to you right now. Like minus all that stuff that we've heard. Yeah, so that's the perspective I come from, and I really approach like spirituality and the Christian walk with wisdom. That's my predominant theme, because I think modern day versions have just missed the whole Solomon stream of things, and we forget that Solomon was an extremely wise individual, right? We have people like Daniel understanding dreams and things like that, so that's where I come from.
Yeah, and then just to add on that, I guess it's probably more of a statement than a question, but as you're talking about these things, because I'm also interested in Christian, like the corpus of Christianity, it kind of seems like we're making a lot of towers of Babel, and that's kind of what, it's like we're trying to create some type of structure to get to some type of heavenly desired state, and in the Old Testament, of course, the Tower of Babel, that does not really turn out well for humans. So it's
Yeah.
pretty concerning. But
Yeah.
it's glad to see someone like you, or I'm glad to see someone like you who's very coming from the human side. You're like, look, we need to appreciate the depth of the soul, whatever that even means, right?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, thanks. Is that it for time? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.